You know that 4B movement going on in America? Islam is quite literally the only solution to that. In the West, every single day, there's a new ism. There's a movement to support women, there's a movement to support men at the expense of women, there's a movement to support a specific race, specific type of orientation. And this latest 4B movement is just another example of what happens when people don't have Islam. And if you're a non-Muslim watching this video, this is going to be especially important for you. So what is this 4B movement going on? See, women in the West are adopting this movement called 4B that started in South Korea a few years ago. South Korea has been known to have one of the lowest birth rates in any country worldwide and has the lowest fertility rate as well. Women's rights movements are rampant in South Korea. So, South Korean women adopted this movement called 4B, which basically says the four no's that they're going to do. Four things that women there are refusing to do. Number one is dating. So, no to casual dating, going out, none of that. Number two, no to marriage. So I thought the first one was no to dating, meaning, marriage only, but they don't even want marriage. Number three is no to intimacy with men. It's almost like voluntary celibacy. And the number four is no to childbearing. See, the whole movement, these women's rights organizations, they basically purport the idea that you shouldn't let a patriarchal man essentially impregnate you with the patriarchal body. And you're more than just a child rearing machine, you're more than just a vessel for birth. And your value as a woman is about you. It's not about being a mother or a wife. It's all about you. Now, I'm going to let you guys know what my thoughts on that are in a very second, but I have to let you know before that what I really think about all this. See, the 4B movement that happened in South Korea is fine, but all of a sudden, it's making its way to America. America has seen a rapid rise after Trump won the election and has become president in women adopting this 4B mentality in the West. I'm not even kidding. All you see are women saying no to intimacy with their husband, no to dating, no to, which again, I'm for because I'm Muslim. I'm all for no dating and no casual intimacy, but no to child rearing, no to this. And I can't help but think how the solution that they need is literally Islam. When the Me Too movement was happening, women reporting workplace SA and stuff like that, I was in support of that because, I'm not going to call myself a womanist now. I'm not going to call myself supporting Me Too in that sense, but I'm a Muslim and Islam supports the idea that there shouldn't be free mixing and there shouldn't be touching non-mahram women, strange women that you're not married to. So the idea that a woman would even get SA'd in the first place wouldn't happen if everyone was practicing Islam, if everyone was following Islam correctly. This is not to say Muslims are perfect, of course, we're human too, but our teachings tell us to not do the things that happen in the West, very commonly, that a lot of women are becoming frustrated about. And the reason behind this is because the Muslim woman is fundamentally valued differently than the Western woman. And I'm going to explain it as simply as I can. In Islam, a man and a woman have the equal ability to have the equal value in the eyes of God. Now, this is very contrary to many of the movements you see in the West. For example, the R pill movement, which was reactionary to the women's movements, right? They basically want to put you up at the expense of women. They'll promote ideas like, there's a perfect wifey woman, and then there's women that you treat recreationally only, right? And if you have a woman that you treat recreationally only, just sleep with her, don't really take her seriously, don't wife her, right? But what they fail to realize is you're creating more women that are recreational material only, as you say. But then you go and complain about a bunch of women that are recreational only and there's no wifey left. And it's a whole mess. And then you look at the women's movements, the women's rights movement. They started initially, once upon a time in the 1900s, to essentially have the equal right as men. They wanted the right to vote. They wanted the right to just be looked at as a human being. Now, here's the thing, as a Muslim, I'm in support of a woman having the same rights to humanity as a man. This is not to say we're the same, but I support that. But the problem is, over centuries, after the second wave, after the third wave, and the fourth wave, and the fifth wave, you see women just wanting to essentially empower themselves at the expense of men. It's all about liberating themselves. It's all about going outside, spreading their wings, and flying, but no to men. And this is fundamentally where Islam comes in and is different. Islam says a woman is not going to go outside and get validation based on her appearance and then is going to be used for her beauty to commodify herself, to push a product or to sell a service. This is not how Islam values women. This is also a very common misunderstanding that a lot of people have about Muslim women, that, oh, they're oppressed and they're subjugated and they're repressed and they don't have the right to do what they want to do. They don't have the right to education. They don't have the right to liberation and independence, they have to wear this headscarf that oppresses them. See, Franz Fanon, a psychologist, I believe 50 years ago or 100 years ago, said that the woman that cannot be seen, the veiled woman, the Muslim woman, frustrates the colonizer because it's in her covering herself that he realizes that she can't just be an object of possession. The second that a Muslim woman covers and decides that I don't want to show myself to the world, I don't want just anybody having access to my beauty, all of a sudden you can't use her now to push a product. And in the West, unfortunately, I'm just going to say it as it is, beauty sells, women sell. Most of the cars you see in terms of advertisements, most of the airline commercials, most of the products, it's all using women's beauty to just push this product for you to buy it. It doesn't matter. Look at a food delivery ad, look at a purse ad, look at a clothing ad, look at shoes. They're all over the billboards. And in Islam, we don't do that. A woman has value in the sense that her beauty is not going to be what she looks at as her self esteem. This is not to say women don't have a natural, innate desire to be beautiful, but we just decide and restrict who she shows that to. And she has that choice. We're not programming women from early on in childhood that, oh, no, your nose is not perfect and your eyes are not perfect and you need this surgery and you need to do that to your face and you need this product and you need this skincare routine. This is why Islam really intimidates the West, because all of a sudden you can't control and enslave your population anymore. So when women in the West are just commodifying themselves and their beauty and just having casual intimacy with random men, dating culture and hookup culture, right? Because we're so liberated, then all of a sudden, when things like Donald Trump wins the election, now you want to restrict yourself because you're like, I don't want to make bad choices. But the bad choices wouldn't have been made if you didn't want to empower yourself in that way in the first place. In Islam, you're not supposed to date. It's haram, it's forbidden. You're supposed to marry. Now, that's a very controversial thing to many people in the West because they're like, if you don't do a test drive, how are you going to know you want to marry this person? If you don't test the waters, if you don't get to know them first, how are you going to know that you want to spend the rest of your life with them? And this is a very fair question. See, the reality is you don't actually just marry them. You are allowed to get to know them, but everything's done under parent supervision because how many cases do we have where they're having intimacy, they're having a relationship, and then it doesn't end up working out, and now they have this trauma. This affects men and women, and it carries on for the rest of their life to a lesser or greater extent. For us, we just prevent that as Muslims. We're all pro intimacy, pro pair bonding, pro companionship, but it's done in a correct way. There's no messing around. I go to your dad and I express my intention of me wanting to marry you and getting to know you for the sake of marriage, and they get involved and everyone's involved, and I just get to know you and you get to know me in permissibility in the eyes of everyone else. There's no like sneaky business, there's no funny business going on. He takes the time to vet me out as a man because only men know how other men think. And at the end of it, he decides if I'm a good, suitable match for you. Obviously, he shouldn't be doing unjust reasons for rejecting me, but as long as he's on point, everything's gonna be fine. Then we get married, and now you are my responsibility as a woman. I'm your husband. I have to provide for you, protect for you. This is very different than the West, with this 50-50 movement and all this. And if the couple has no problem with her working, she can work, but she's not expected to pay the bills. That's the only difference. And if God forbid anything happens to us and we have to get a divorce and there's no other choice, we do that, but then you are now the responsibility of your father again. Meaning you're not here to fend for yourself in a world of wolves. This is why when women are so selective now in this 4B movement, these problems wouldn't have happened if everyone was practicing Islam to the best of their ability in the first place anyway. Because there wouldn't be dating anyway. There wouldn't be child rearing, as in they have this fear that, oh, what if I'm oppressed and I pick the wrong guy and now I have to have a kid with him? It wouldn't happen anyway. No to intimacy doesn't really make sense anyway. Like, why would you not want intimacy? Every man and woman should want intimacy in what's consensual and in what's permissible. And then marriage solves all the issues that you had in the first place. And there's a lot of pressure associated in the West with marriage too. It's like a commitment, Many times this is like pseudo Christian beliefs. You know how in Christianity you believe till death do you apart, right? Once you get married, there's no divorcing. We don't believe in that. Obviously, we should not promote divorce. We shouldn't normalize divorce in the sense that it's something looked up to. Matter of fact, the Prophet, peace be upon him, mentioned that divorce is the most hateful, permissible thing in the eyes of God. So yes, we don't do divorce unless it's like a last resort case only. But if it gets to that, that's fine. So there's no pressure in that. There's no, you have to make the right choice for life because that's immense pressure. And there's no 500K wedding, $40,000 ring, and all this like extravagance. And you have to get your money up. You have to go down on one knee, and she has to film this on the top of a mountain after a 5-hour hike. There's none of this, bro. In Islam, marriage is simple. You need two witnesses, you need the permission of the father, and you need to give her a dowry, a wedding gift. That's it. And if the wife consents and the husband consents, you guys get married. Boom. good to go. So I don't blame it. I do understand that a lot of Western women are frustrated, but to an extent, they're also contributing to it. See, it's all about me too. Oh, I don't want creeps, looking at me for my body, my choice. I don't want them, objectifying me. But then they're moving in a way that makes them objectified. They're objectifying themselves. These women are going outside wearing next to nothing, going clubbing, going back to hotel rooms with random men. And then if anything happens, oh, it's the man's fault. Sis, why are you putting yourself in that situation to begin with? I'm not denying that the man is responsible for any harm that he does to you, of course. But why are you putting yourself in that? Is preemptivity and prevention not in the cure anymore? If I had a 500K Lambo, I'm not leaving it outside unlocked in the hood. I'm gonna make sure I keep it locked. Now, this doesn't mean, oh, you don't trust your car. No, of course I trust my car. Why am I leaving my car somewhere random where it's gonna get robbed anyway? To begin with, I would be smarter than that. Because this whole notion and idea of pacifism and oh, everyone should be good. Guess what? It's not gonna happen, sweetheart. We live in a world of vultures and wolves. Just because you want to be nice and make sure that you do your best to everybody around you doesn't mean it's going to be the same to everybody else. Some people just want evil, and they are evil. And I get that a lot of them have lost faith in patriarchy, and Islam being unapologetically, undeniably a patriarchal religion. They've lost faith in that. Their fathers, their brothers probably were genuinely not fair towards women. Not in the sense that they should be equal to men in every regard, but just fair in like rights. A lot of Muslim fathers and a lot of fathers in general give specific rights to the sons that they shouldn't to the daughters. For example, they'll let their sons have girlfriends, but then they won't let their daughters have boyfriends. Now, I'm not saying you should let your daughter have a boyfriend. Of course not. Why let your son have a girlfriend now? Why does it make it okay to do zina just because it's a guy? It's still zina, my guy. Or their son can come home at like 11 p.m., 12 a.m. after shisha with the boys and there's no issues, but then their daughter has to be home at a certain time. So what I'm saying is they'll allow haram when it's the son, but many times they won't allow anything, even if it's permissible, to the daughter just because it might be looked down upon by society, even if Allah allows it. And this has frustrated a lot of women. They've realized that a lot of Muslim culture is actually not good towards women, even though Islam is fine and very fair towards women. So I get that this word patriarchy triggers a lot of women, but this is why Islam holds a man to a very high standard. He's not just the leader because he's the leader. He's the leader because he has responsibilities over her too. He's literally responsible by God for her. And a lot of people in the West are realizing that, this liberal value of just chase happiness, just do what makes you feel good. It's actually not going to fulfill you. I was talking to this with one of my brothers that Jannah, heaven, has all the pleasures that we want. And we crave that so much, we try to do things like substances and do things like adultery and fornication and things in this life, just thinking that it'll bring us that. But it actually doesn't bring us fulfillment at all. I don't know if you guys saw Brittany Renner, a celebrity. She recently converted to Islam, right? And she deleted all of her videos and pictures from before when she was a model, and she only dresses in hijab now. And she said this recently, and I found this very profound.
What made you choose Islam? I didn't. I am a human with very limited power and awareness, but I have learned that God selects who he wills for his mercy. So let's start there, for those of you who don't think I'm qualified, okay? A lot of you claim to know my life story, why I do what I do. Well, then you would know that for quite a while I've been suffering. When did you notice that my smile began to look like a strain? And when you noticed, did you reach out? Okay. I've been in search of the truth my whole life, looking for some sort of guidance in the stars, astrology, numerology. But the truth is, the only guidance is God's guidance. And when you don't live for God, you live for others. My life has been a reflection of that. I have profited off my body, beauty, antics, often drunken, giving myself to the world, hoping for something back, wondering why I'm feeling empty, comfortable in my misery because I have known no other way. Mountains were moved in my life. We as humans would call them miracles, but to God, God wills and it is. It's not a miracle. It's another day at the office. At that point, how could I deny the truth? Because when those mountains started being moved, it was only because of prayer and acknowledging our Creator. That was the only difference. Islam is the only religion I've been drawn to. And when I got the call that it was time, I took my Shahada August 5th. Haven't looked back. All I know is utter devotion. So to put the hijab on, to change, it's nothing. Done. Allah has been answering my questions along the way. He called me to this faith for a reason. And I will not question it. You know when people say it would take an act of God? Okay, well, here you have it. And for those of you who are confused, I'm not surprised. Because most of you are double-minded. The man who is double-minded is unstable in all his ways. For once in my life, doing this for me, to be right in the eyes of Allah, to die in full submission to Allah when it's time, is my only goal. In whatever stage Allah calls me to, I would be much obliged to take the well of wisdom that I have acquired with me and to do what I've been called to do. Because I have been gifted this platform for a reason and I'm not going anywhere. Okay? Hope that answers some of you guys' questions. And may Allah make it easy for us all.
I mean, before y'all come at me, it was an audio recording that I had on my phone because they're gonna be like, "Oh, brother, lower your gaze." I wasn't looking at it anyway. And to all of the Westerners, the non-Muslims watching this, what is lower your gaze? See, in Islam, men are commanded to lower our gaze. We're supposed to not look lustfully at women, except our wife. Women are supposed to lower their gaze as well, but men especially because they're visual creatures. And women are supposed to cover up and dress modestly. And before the women say, "Oh, they're gonna objectify you anyway," even if you dress up, sure, but at least you're not gonna be responsible for anything that happens. I'm all about equal responsibility in the eyes of God. So I believe if a man does something dangerous to you in an alleyway, then of course he's responsible. He shouldn't have done that. But what were you doing in the middle of the night in an alleyway anyway, knowing that there's vultures outside when you could have just not been there? And this idea that, oh, a woman should be able to go outside and do whatever she wants in the middle of the night, wearing whatever she wants, and she should be okay with it. And if anything happens, we should educate the men, and the men are the problem. I'm all for that in an idealistic reality, but this is not reality. This is not going to happen. Go raise your kids that way. Tell your kids to just play nice and be fair and be kind and, be soft. And that's okay if you're like this. Do unto others as you'd want them to do unto you. But the thing is, they're still probably going to get bullied, bro. We should be nice. We should be educating our kids to be kind and be fair and be just. But does this mean we don't teach them self-defense now? Does this mean we just put our head in the ground like an ostrich or a flamingo, whatever the animal is that puts his head and buries it underground because, the world is just full of everyone's nice? No, of course not. They're still going to get bullied. And when that happens, what are you going to do? And this is why in Islam, we have this thing called objective morality. We believe that God Almighty has told us exactly what to do and what not to go to heaven. That's it. It's plain and simple. A lot of people say, we don't need God, we don't need religion, we know what's right and wrong. See, the problem with subjective morality or people morally subjectively deciding what's right and wrong is the fact that no two people will think the same subjectively. You go to someone that wants to prey on innocent kids and they're going to think love is love, I can do whatever I want. And we're going to say, no, this is not okay. Where are we going to come to a common ground with that? You go to someone that likes deleting other people off the face of the world, right? Just unaliving them. We don't like that. We don't think that's okay. But they're going to say, no, this is fine. This is just how I express my mental health or whatever. And in a world of just subjective morality, you have chaos, you have turmoil, you have conflict and clash. See, so many of the women in the West believe that we should be one certain way and society should operate in a certain way. And then so many of the men decide something else. And we'll never get anywhere if we all believe, I think I'm right. Because no two people think the same. So now, when you have a world of objective morality where we believe that God Almighty has revealed what He revealed, we genuinely understand that it doesn't matter how we feel, God's law is only one law. And by the way, this is also why shirk is the worst sin of them all. It's like literally the worst sin. And a lot of people fail to reconcile this in their mind. Well, yeah, I get it. Shirk is really bad. But you're telling me it's worse than like unaliving people? It's worse than like taking advantage of someone against their will? You're really telling me like these things are not as bad as shirk? Well, here's the thing. Just because I say that shirk is the worst thing in the world doesn't mean I actually think the other ones are okay. They're all bad. But the thing is, it's through shirk that the other ones can even happen. See, every single person in the world, if they're committing shirk, if they're associating partners with God, they're not obeying Allah and His religion and His commandments, right? It's only through disobeying God and shirk that we can even birth the other sins like unaliving people, taking advantage of people, stealing, theft, all these horrible sins, they only come with shirk. That's why shirk is the worst sin, associating partners with God, not believing in God, denying God, because it creates all the other sins that you're scared of. And I generally think that the world is headed to a place where things are not going to change for the better anytime soon. And this is why Islam frees you. It tells you that your only concern, your only importance, your only priority in this life, in this short temporary life, in this dunya, in this world, is just to please your creator. That's it. Don't worry about other people. Don't worry about him. Don't worry about her. Don't worry about, how many likes you got on Instagram and your validation and this and that and social status and the car you drive and this and that. Just worry about pleasing Allah. That's it. And if every single person in the world in society is obeying God and trying to follow the teachings of God, then you don't really need stuff like the 4B movement. And this is why Islam is the ultimate solution to this 4B nonsense. And if you're a Muslim woman watching this, please don't try to adopt this. You're better than this, sis. You're a Muslimah, for God's sake. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us physically, mentally, and more importantly, spiritually fit. Inshallah, see you guys next week at Fight Fit. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.